Hello, Mirella. How are you?
Hello, Jill. Thank you very well. Yes, from Switzerland today, with some news from Germany, and if we have time, France as well. So I'm going to begin with Germany because we have seen over the past couple of years a substantial rise in right extremist movements. And that has been increasing to the point that this week some riots have been taken place in the city of Chemnitz, which is in Saxony, in the eastern part of Germany. So why did that happen? It all began with the stabbing of a young man on last Sunday. This young man was 35 years old, was German, and that created a kind of payback action from far-right extremists and hooligans and just anti-immigration Germans, because the two main suspects seem to be coming from Syria and Iraq. So the numbers have been very different from paper to paper. So it went from 1,500 people on the street to 5,000, 6,000, including the counter protesters. This is really very important to talk about, because one of the main problem with this entire disaster is the fact that many news have been circulating online, mainly about the action itself. So it was first a German, then it was someone half German, half Cuban, which would have probably also then stopped some people to act against it, as he was not full German in their eyes. But all of this to take with caution, because some speak about a German, some speak about a German-Cuban person. The fact is that he has been stabbed and that he died from it. And I believe that this has not been the main reason for all these people going on the street, but really because the two main suspects are from Syria and Iraq. Even the AFD, how it's called, which is a right-wing extremist party, didn't really discourage people to go on the street. Some of the people in the party even encouraged people to go on the street and do their justice when the state doesn't take care of justice anymore. So many people have been hurt, and the reaction in Germany, as you can imagine, are very strong. One should maybe extend the news to a point where 2 points actually. One point is the fact that news are to take with caution, because by being always the fastest in bringing news out there, many times things are not set right or properly, and news create by now such heavy reactions that it really does matter what is written or not written. The second thing is that maybe it would be also a good option to consider that it's not always a good thing to talk about nationalities in such cases, because a man has been stabbed on the street, and it doesn't really matter now where he was coming from. He has been stabbed and he died, and the people who seem to have perpetrated the crime are in custody, and that's all it matters, because in no circumstances it's all right to stab anybody. And maybe by wanting always to put descriptions and basically etiquettes to people, one really construct situations that should have never happened. And the result of it is that Chemnitz is now a city that is looked upon as a city made out of racist people, and a city that doesn't have violence under control. So a lot has to do with the details and descriptions that are given online, and maybe it would be a good option to reflect on how necessary certain descriptions are, especially if they end up creating literally riots on the street with 2, 3, 4, or 5,000 people fighting against each other, and especially fighting actually against police officers. There is no way that in such circumstances, on top of a very terrible death of a man, some other people would be hurt and wounded, and would also need to go to the hospital. So it seems a little bit like a snowball that nobody is really able to stop, and this is definitely something that has to be dealt with. Why do people go on street with such violent intentions, and how to make sure that that doesn't happen again? So this is for Germany, and Chancellor Merkel, of course, also made her comments, and insisted on the fact that vigilante justice would not be tolerated in Germany, and that there is no space for intolerance, nor for extremists. Now, there is, of course, always a big gap between words and facts, and Germany is definitely now in a phase of history where, together with many other countries in the world, extremists are gaining power, and it always ends up with the death of people, and that should just not happen in our countries that we like to call civilized. Another interesting news comes from France this week, and it's the resignation of Nicolas Hulot, who was the French Minister for the Environment. and a green activist. He has been resigning suddenly. That has surprised the French president, Macron, and everybody else. And it comes at a time, unfortunately, where um, President Macron is a little bit at a low point with his polls, and to have a minister like Nicolas Hulot going away is a little bit of disappointment, because Nicolas Hulot is very liked in France. Of course, he has also many enemies, if one can say it like this, but he is, from the public point of view, extremely liked. He was also the person who basically in the past made the first most interesting nature TV shows, like, for example, one called Ushuaia, which was a TV show extremely popular with younger people, like older people in France, about nature and about how to save nature, and how to make sure that the planet will continue to exist the way we know it. It seems like his reason for not having given a warning to President Macron is the fact that he didn't want to be convinced to stay. So one can, of course, speculate on why he didn't want to be convinced to stay. The most logical answer, of course, would be that he has the feeling that he doesn't have the power nor the freedom to make changes that are really relevant and that are really going to help anybody. And as he said himself once, when he was asked if he was an optimist or pessimist, he said, "I'm an optimist, of course. Sometimes I am a despairing optimist." So let's hope, though, that he will be able to continue his good work in another constellation.
Thank you very much, Mirella Rastorfer, over there.
My pleasure.